The shattered wine glass at my feet seemed to mock me, its crimson contents seeping into the pristine white carpet like a growing stain on my perfect life. I stood frozen, staring at Owen's phone clutched in my trembling hand, the incriminating text messages glaring back at me. "Emily, honey, what's wrong?" Owen's voice floated from the kitchen, concern lacing his words. The sound of his footsteps approaching snapped me out of my daze. I looked up, meeting his eyes as he entered our living room. "Who's Samantha?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Owen's face paled, his eyes darting between me and his phone. She's just a coworker," he stammered, taking a step towards me. "A coworker you're sleeping with? You're sleeping with?" I spat, anger rising in my chest. "Don't lie to me, Owen. I've seen the messages." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I once found endearing. Now it only fueled my rage. "Emily, I can explain." "Explain what?" I cut him off, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been cheating on me, how you've been lying to my face for God knows how long." Owen reached out, trying to take his phone back, but I jerked away. "It's not what you think," he pleaded. "Samantha and it's complicated." I laughed bitterly. "Complicated? That's rich. What's so complicated about keeping your vows, Owen?" A knock at the door interrupted our confrontation. Owen's eyes widened in panic. "That's probably my mother," he said, glancing at his watch. "She mentioned stopping by today." "Perfect timing," I muttered, marching towards the door. I flung it open, revealing Mary's surprised face. "Emily, dear, I hope I'm not interrupting anything," she chirped, her eyes taking in my disheveled appearance and tear-stained cheeks. "Not at all, Mary," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're just in time for the show." Mary stepped inside, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What's going on? Owen, honey, is everything all right?" Owen appeared behind me, his face a mask of guilt and fear. "Mom, now's not a good time." "Your son's been cheating on me," I announced, cutting him off, "with a coworker named Samantha. Isn't that right, Owen?" Mary's eyes widened, darting between Owen and me. "Oh, dear," she murmured, wringing her hands. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Owen would never." "There's no misunderstanding," I interrupted by thrusting Owen's phone towards her. "It's all right here in black and white." Mary took the phone hesitantly, her eyes scanning the messages. Her face paled as she read, and I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction watching her perfect image of her son crumble. "Owen," she whispered, looking up at him with disappointment etched across her face. "How could you?" Owen's shoulders slumped in defeat. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, unable to meet either of our gazes. I turned to Mary, my anger finding a new target. "Did you know about this? Did you help him cover it up?" Mary's eyes flashed with indignation. "Of course not. I would never condone such behavior. Owen, I raised you better than this." As they bickered, I felt a strange sense of detachment wash over me. This wasn't how I imagined spending my Thursday evening. I should be curled up on the couch with Owen, planning our weekend getaway. Instead, I was standing in the midst of a family drama I never asked for. "I need some air," I announced, grabbing my keys from the side table. Neither Owen nor Mary seemed to hear me, too engrossed in their argument. I slipped out the door, the cool evening air a welcome relief on my flushed skin. As I walked towards my car, I couldn't help but wonder how I'd missed the signs. How long had this been going on? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? I stared at the glossy brochure in my hands, my stomach churning with a mix of excitement and unease. The penthouse suite on the 40th floor looked breathtaking, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city. Owen's enthusiasm was infectious as he pointed out the amenities. "Can you imagine, Em? Our own private terrace, a state-of-the-art gym, and a concierge at our beck and call," he gushed, his eyes sparkling with desire. I nodded, trying to match his excitement. "It's beautiful, Owen, but can we afford it? It seems extravagant." Owen waved his hand dismissively. "Don't worry about that. With your promotion and my new clients, we'll be fine. We deserve this, Em. After everything we've been through, don't you think we should treat ourselves?" The mention of our recent troubles made me wince. It had been 2 months since I discovered Owen's affair, and we were still piecing our marriage back together. Part of me wondered if this lavish condo was his way of making amends. "I don't know." I hesitated. "Maybe we should look at our finances first?" Owen's smile faltered for a moment before he plastered it back on. "Of course, darling. Why don't we go over the numbers tonight?" That evening, I spread our financial documents across the dining table. As I pored over bank statements and credit card bills, a sinking feeling settled in my gut. "Owen," I called out, my voice tight, "can you explain these charges?" He sauntered over, peering at the statement I was pointing to. "Oh, those? Just some business expenses. Don't worry about it." I frowned, noting the frequency and amounts of the charges. Business expenses at high-end restaurants and hotels, and why are they on our personal card? Owen shifted uncomfortably. "It's complicated, Em. Sometimes I need to wine and dine clients. It's part of the job." "And the hotel charges?" I pressed, my suspicion growing. "Late nights, you know how it is," he mumbled, not meeting my eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my temper in check. "Owen, be honest with me. How much debt are we in?" He hesitated before sighing heavily. "It's substantial, but it's temporary, I swear, once these deals come through." "How much?" I interrupted, my voice sharp. Owen mumbled a number that made my blood run cold. It was more than double what I had feared. "How could you let it get this bad?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I was trying to provide for us, to give you the life you deserve," Owen pleaded. "With your new salary, we can easily manage the payments and afford the new condo." I stared at him, realization dawning. "My salary? You were counting on my money to bail us out?" Owen had the decency to look ashamed. "Not bail us out exactly, but your promotion came at the perfect time. We can start fresh in a new place without all this baggage." "Baggage that you created," I snapped. "And now you expect me to clean up your mess?" "We're a team, aren't we?" Owen asked, reaching for my hand. "What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. Isn't that what marriage is about?" I pulled away, anger bubbling up inside me. "Marriage is about trust and honesty, Owen, two things you seem to have forgotten." "Emily, please," he begged. "I know I've made mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right. This new condo could be a fresh start for us." I stood up, gathering the financial documents. A fresh start built on lies and debt? No, thank you. As I turned to leave the room, Owen called out, "Where are you going?" "To call my parents," I replied coldly. "I need some honest advice for a change." I slammed the door to our bedroom, my hands shaking as I dialed my mother's number. As the phone rang, I couldn't help but wonder how I'd been so blind. First the affair, and now this financial disaster. What other secrets was Owen hiding? The sound of my mother's warm, familiar voice answered, "Emily, sweetheart? Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath, tears stinging my eyes. "No, Mom, everything is not okay. I need your help." The incessant ringing of the doorbell jolted me awake. I groaned, glancing at the clock, 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Who could it be at this ungodly hour? I stumbled out of bed, wrapping my robe tightly around me. Owen was still fast asleep, oblivious to the noise. As I approached the door, I heard a familiar voice calling out. "Owen, Emily, it's Mom. Open up, dears." My heart sank. Mary. Of course it had to be Mary. I opened the door, plastering on a fake smile. "Good morning, Mary. What a surprise." Mary bustled past me, arms laden with shopping bags. "Oh, Emily, dear, you look dreadful. Are you not sleeping well?" Before I could respond, she was already making her way to the kitchen. "I thought I'd pop by and make you two a proper breakfast. Owen works so hard, he needs a good meal to start his day." I bit back a retort about Owen's hard work and followed her. "That's thoughtful of you, Mary." "But really, you didn't have to." "Nonsense," she interrupted, unpacking groceries. "It's no trouble at all. Now, be a dear and wake Owen, will you?" Reluctantly, I went to rouse my husband. Owen stumbled into the kitchen, looking confused but pleased to see his mother. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Mary beamed at him. "Just taking care of my boy. Sit down. Breakfast will be ready soon." As we ate, Mary chattered away, mostly addressing Owen and occasionally throwing a pointed comment my way. "Emily, dear, don't you think you should cut back on the carbs? That promotion of yours must be quite stressful." I gritted my teeth, forcing a smile. "I'm managing just fine, thank you." Owen, oblivious to the tension, piped up. "Oh, Mom, did I tell you? We're thinking of moving to a new condo." Mary's eyes lit up. "Really? How wonderful. You know, I've been thinking of downsizing myself. Perhaps I could move in with you too? Just temporarily, of course." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" Owen looked thoughtful. "That's not a bad idea, actually. What do you think, Em?" I stared at them both, incredulous. I need some air. Excuse me." I fled to the balcony, my mind reeling. How had we gone from financial troubles to potentially living with my mother-in-law in the span of a week? A few minutes later, Owen joined me. "Hey, you okay?" I turned to face him, struggling to keep my voice level. "Owen, we can't afford that new condo, let alone have your mother move in with us." He frowned. "But with your promotion—" "My promotion doesn't magically erase our debt," I snapped. "And I'm not using my hard-earned money to finance your mother's retirement." Owen's face hardened. "She's family, Emily. We can't just abandon her." "And what about my family?" I countered. "My parents could use help too, but you don't see me suggesting they move in." "That's different," Owen muttered. How is it different?" Before Owen could respond, Mary's voice floated out from the kitchen. "Everything all right out there, dears?" Owen called back. "Just fine, Mom. Emily and I are just discussing some details." I lowered my voice. "Owen, this has to stop. Your mother can't keep barging into our lives like this." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know she can be a bit much, but she means well. Can't you try to get along with her? For me?" I stared at him, a realization dawning. "You're always going to take her side, aren't you?" Owen's silence was all the answer I needed. I pushed past him, heading back inside. "Mary," I said, my voice tight with forced politeness, "thank you for breakfast, but Owen and I have some private matters to discuss. Perhaps it's best if you head home now." Mary looked affronted. "Well, I never. Owen, are you going to let her speak to me like that?" Owen stood frozen, caught between his wife and his mother. The tension in the room was palpable. As I watched Owen's conflicted face, a cold certainty settled in my chest. This wasn't just about Mary's visit or the condo anymore. This was about the future of our marriage, and suddenly that future looked very uncertain indeed. I stared at the unfamiliar floral arrangement on our coffee table, my jaw clenched. This was the third time this week I'd come home to find Mary had tidied up our condo. The scent of lavender air freshener assaulted my nostrils, a far cry from the citrus scent I preferred. "Owen?" I called out, my voice tight with frustration. He appeared from the kitchen, a guilty look on his face. "Hey, Em? You're home early? Where's your mother?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Owen shifted uncomfortably. "She just left. She brought over some casseroles for us and thought she'd help out a bit." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my rising anger. "Owen, we talked about this. Your mother can't keep coming over unannounced and rearranging our home." "She's just trying to help, Emily," Owen defended. "You've been so busy with work lately," she thought. "She thought what?" I snapped. "That I can't manage my own home? That I'm not good enough for her precious son?" Owen's face hardened. "That's not fair. Mom's been nothing but kind to you." I laughed bitterly. "Kind? Is that what you call her constant criticism and meddling?" Before Owen could respond, the front door opened, and Mary waltzed in, carrying another bag of groceries. "Oh, Emily dear, you're home!" she exclaimed with false cheer. "I forgot to bring over the organic kale I bought for you. I know how much you love your healthy foods." I bit my tongue, knowing full well I'd mentioned my dislike for kale multiple times. "Thank you, Mary, but that wasn't necessary." Mary waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Someone has to make sure you two are eating properly. Owen works so hard he needs proper nutrition." I felt my temper flare. "And what about my work, Mary? Do you think I just sit around all day?" Mary's smile faltered for a moment. "Well, of course not, dear. But let's be honest, Owen's job is much more demanding. It's only natural that you should pick up the slack at home." I stared at her, incredulous. "Excuse me?" Owen stepped in, sensing the tension. "Mom, maybe now's not the best time." "No, Owen," I interrupted. "I want to hear what your mother has to say. Please, Mary, enlighten me about my responsibilities." Mary's eyes narrowed. "Well, if you must know, I think you could be doing more to support Owen. A good wife puts her husband's needs first. Your career should come second to your family." I felt as if I'd been slapped. "My career is what's keeping this family afloat," I hissed, thinking of the mountain of debt Owen had accrued. "Emily," Owen warned, but I was beyond caring. "Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to get where I am?" I continued, my voice rising. "I am not about to give that up to become some 1950s housewife fantasy," Mary gasped, clutching her pearls. "Owen, are you going to let her speak to me like this?" I turned to Owen, daring him to side with his mother. To my dismay, he remained silent, his eyes darting between us. "You know what?" I said, grabbing my keys. I can't do this right now. I'm leaving. Emily, wait. Owen started, but I was already out the door. I drove aimlessly, tears blurring my vision. How had my life come to this? My once loving husband, now a stranger. My home, no longer my own, and my achievements belittled at every turn. As I pulled into a parking lot to compose myself, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Owen. Mom's staying for dinner. Please come home so we can talk. I stared at the message, a cold realization settling in my chest. This wasn't just about Mary's visit or her hurtful comments. This was about my future, our future. And suddenly I knew I had a decision to make. With shaking hands, I dialed a number I should have called weeks ago. Dad, I said when he answered. I need your advice. I think I might be ready to leave Owen. I smoothed down my dress for the 100th time, nervously glancing at the clock. My parents would be here any minute, and I was determined to make this visit perfect. After weeks of tension with Owen and Mary, I needed the comfort of my family. The doorbell rang, and I rushed to answer it, a genuine smile spreading across my face as I saw my parents. Mom! Dad! I exclaimed, pulling them both into a tight hug. Emily, sweetheart, my mother Ruth said warmly. It's so good to see you. Father John squeezed my shoulder. You look tired, Pumpkin. Everything okay? Before I could respond, Owen appeared behind me. Ruth, John, welcome, he said, his tone polite but cool. As we settled in the living room, I couldn't help but notice Owen's tense posture. He'd been reluctant about this visit from the start, but I'd insisted. I needed my parents here, needed their grounding presence. So tell us about this new condo you're thinking of buying, my father said, trying to break the ice. Owen perked up at this. It's fantastic, John. Top-of-the-line appliances, a view of the city skyline. And way out of our budget, I interjected, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My mother, ever the peacemaker, quickly changed the subject. Emily mentioned you've been busy at work, Owen. How's that going? Owen launched into a long-winded explanation of his latest business deals, peppered with jargon I knew my parents wouldn't understand. I watched their faces, seeing the confusion and growing discomfort. Well, my father said when Owen finally paused for breath, sounds complicated. In our line of work, we prefer to keep things simple and honest. Owen's eyes narrowed. And what line of work is that again? Farm management, wasn't it? I tensed, recognizing the condescending tone in Owen's voice. Property management, actually, I corrected. Mom and Dad have built a successful business from the ground up. Right, Owen scoffed, managing pig pens and chicken coops. Very impressive. Owen, I gasped, shocked at his rudeness. My father's face hardened. Now listen here, young man. But Owen was on a roll. No, you listen. I'm tired of pretending that your quaint little country life is somehow equal to what Emily and I have built here. We're in a different league, and it's time you understood that. How dare you? I sputtered, anger rising in my chest. My parents have worked harder than you ever have. Owen turned on me, his eyes flashing. Oh, please. They wouldn't know real work if it bit them on their overalls. And you're not much better, Emily, always going on about your precious career as if pushing papers around is somehow more important than what I do. The room fell silent, the weight of Owen's words hanging heavy in the air. I looked at my parents, seeing the hurt and anger in their eyes, and something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Owen blinked, taken aback. What? I said. Get out, I shouted, standing up. Get out of this house, and don't you dare come back until you're ready to apologize to my parents and to me. Owen stared at me in disbelief before storming out, slamming the door behind him. As the echo of the slam faded, I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. My parents rushed to my side, enveloping me in a comforting embrace. Oh, sweetie, my mother murmured, stroking my hair. I'm so sorry. Through my tears, I looked up at them. I can't do this anymore, I whispered. I think my marriage is over. My father nodded solemnly. Whatever you decide, we're here for you, Pumpkin, always. As I sat there, surrounded by the unconditional love of my parents, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. The life I had built with Owen was crumbling around me, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I took a deep breath, wiping away my tears. I need to leave him, I said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. Will you help me? My parents exchanged a look before turning back to me with determined expressions. "Of course," they said in unison. "We're family. We'll get through this together." In that moment, I knew my life was about to change dramatically. But with my parents by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. My hands shook as I zipped up the last suitcase. The bedroom, once a sanctuary, now felt suffocating. Owen's pleading voice echoed from the living room, but I steeled myself against it. There was no going back now. "Emily, please," Owen begged as I wheeled my luggage out. "We can work this out. I'll do better, I promise." I turned to face him, my resolve firm. "No, Owen. We're past that point. Your behavior, your lies, your disrespect for my family, it's too much. I'm leaving." His face contorted with anger. "You can't just walk out on our marriage. What about everything we've built together?" I laughed bitterly. "Built together? You mean the mountain of debt you've hidden from me? The life you've constructed on lies and manipulation?" Owen's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I hired a financial investigator," I cut him off. "I know everything, Owen. The gambling debts, the secret credit cards, even the money you've been funneling to your mother." He paled, stumbling back. "Emily, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped. "I'm done with your explanations and excuses. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll be hearing from them soon." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find my parents standing there, concern etched on their faces. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" my father asked, eyeing Owen warily. I nodded, grateful for their support. As my father began loading my bags into their car, Owen made one last desperate attempt. "Ruth, John," he pleaded, "surely you can see this is just a misunderstanding. Help me talk some sense into Emily." My mother's eyes flashed with anger. "The only misunderstanding here is that we ever thought you were good enough for our daughter." Just then the elevator dinged and Mary stepped out. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. "What's going on here? Owen, why are there suitcases?" "Your son's marriage is over, Mary," I said coldly. "I suggest you start looking for a new place to meddle." Mary's face reddened. "How dare you? Owen, are you going to let her speak to me like that?" Owen looked torn, his gaze darting between his mother and me. In that moment, I saw our entire marriage laid bare. His inability to stand up to his mother, his constant need for validation, his disregard for my feelings and aspirations. "You know what?" I said, a sudden calm washing over me. "You two deserve each other. Enjoy your codependent, financially ruinous life together." As I turned to leave, Owen grabbed my arm. "Emily, wait! You can't just throw away 5 years of marriage." I wrenched my arm free. "Watch me." With that, I walked out of the condo, my parents flanking me protectively. As we rode the elevator down, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a twinge of fear for the unknown future ahead. In the parking garage, as my father loaded the last of my bags, I heard rapid footsteps. Owen came running up, out of breath and desperate. "Emily, please," he gasped. "I'll do anything. Why? I'll go to counseling. I'll cut ties with my mother. Anything you want." For a brief moment, I hesitated. 5 years of memories flashed through my mind, the good times, the laughter, the dreams we'd shared. But then I remembered the lies, the betrayal, the constant belittling of my achievements. I took a deep breath and looked Owen in the eye. "It's too late, Owen. I deserve better, and I'm going to find it, without you." As we drove away, I watched Owen's figure grow smaller in the rearview mirror. Tears streamed down my face, but I felt a strange sense of lightness. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was mine to choose. "You okay, Pumpkin?" my father asked gently. I wiped my eyes and managed a small smile. "No," I admitted, "but I will be." As we turned onto the highway, leaving behind the life I'd known, I realized this wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning, my beginning. And despite the pain and uncertainty, I was ready to embrace it. I sat at my parents' kitchen table, clutching a mug of tea as if it were a lifeline. The familiar sense of home surrounded me, but they did little to calm the storm raging inside. "Emily, sweetheart," my mother said gently, placing a hand on my arm. "You need to eat something." I shook my head, my throat tight. "I can't, Mom. I can't believe this is happening." My father cleared his throat, his weathered face creased with concern. "Pumpkin, we need to talk about what comes next, the divorce proceedings, your living situation." At the word divorce, I felt a fresh wave of pain wash over me. How did I let it get this far, Dad? How did I not see what Owen was really like? Love can blind us, my mother said softly, but you're seeing clearly now, and that's what matters. Just then my phone buzzed. Another text from Owen. I'd been ignoring them for days, but curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked the screen and gasped. What is it? My father asked, alarmed. Owen, I choked out. He's threatening to contest the divorce. Says he'll drag my name through the mud, claim I abandoned him. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite decipher. My mother took a deep breath. Emily, there's something we need to tell you, something that might help. I looked up, confused. What do you mean? My father leaned forward, his voice low and serious. We're not just small-town property managers, sweetheart. Our company, it's much bigger than that. My mind reeled. What are you talking about? We own and manage properties all over the state, my mother explained, including the condo complex where you and Owen have been living. I stared at them, stunned. You're our landlords? My father nodded. We kept it quiet because we wanted you to make your own way. But now, with everything that's happened, we can help, my mother finished. Owen hasn't been paying rent for months. We have grounds to evict him. I felt like the room was spinning. Why didn't you tell me this before? We wanted to protect you, my father said, but now we see that keeping secrets, even with good intentions, only causes pain. As the reality of their revelation sank in, I felt a mix of emotions, shock, betrayal, but also a glimmer of hope. So you're saying we have leverage? They nodded in unison. More than that, my mother added. We have the truth on our side. Just then my phone rang. Owen's name flashed on the screen. With trembling hands, I answered and put it on speaker. Emily, Owen's voice crackled through. I'm giving you one last chance. Come home, or I swear I'll make your life hell. I'll tell everyone how you abandoned me, how you... That's enough, Owen. My father's voice boomed, cutting him off. This is John. You might want to rethink your strategy, son. There was a moment of stunned silence. Mr. Johnson? What are you? We know everything, Owen, my mother chimed in. The unpaid rent, the financial mismanagement, it's over. I took a deep breath, finding strength in my parents' support. Owen, listen carefully. You have 24 hours to vacate the condo. If you contest this divorce or try to smear my name, we'll take legal action. Do you understand? The line went silent for a long moment. Then, in a defeated voice, Owen muttered, I understand. As I ended the call, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, but it was quickly replaced by a new burden, the realization that my life was about to change dramatically once again. What now? I asked. Looking at my parents, my father squeezed my hand. Now we fight, together. As I sat there, surrounded by the love and strength of my family, I realized that this wasn't just about ending my marriage. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. And for the first time in months, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Okay, I said, straightening my shoulders. Let's do this. I stood outside the condo, my heart pounding. My parents flanked me, their presence a comforting shield against the storm I knew was coming. With a deep breath, I knocked on the door. Owen answered, his face a mask of desperation. Emily, thank God you're here. I knew you'd come back. Save it, Owen. I cut him off, pushing past him into the condo. My eyes widened as I took in the state of our once pristine home. Takeout containers littered every surface, and the air reeked of stale alcohol. Mary emerged from the kitchen, her eyes narrowing at the sight of us. What are they doing here? She hissed at Owen. My father stepped forward, his voice firm. We're here to settle this once and for all, Mary. As the owners of this property, we're serving you with an eviction notice. Owen's jaw dropped. Owners? What are you talking about? I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction as I watched the realization dawn on their faces. That's right, I said. My parents own this entire complex, and you haven't paid rent in months. Mary's face contorted with rage. You can't do this to us. We'll fight this. With what money? My mother asked calmly. We've seen your financials, Owen. You're broke. Owen collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I thought I could fix it. For a moment I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered all the lies, the manipulation, the years of belittling my achievements. My resolve hardened. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises, I said, my voice steady. After that, we'll be forced to take legal action. Mary lunged forward, her eyes wild. You ungrateful little. My father stepped between us, his presence imposing. "That's enough, Mary. It's over." As Mary retreated, muttering under her breath, Owen looked up at me, his eyes pleading. "Emily, please. I know I messed up, but I love you. We can start over, make things right." I felt a lump form in my throat, memories of our happier times flashing through my mind, but I pushed them aside, focusing on the truth I now knew. "No, Owen," I said softly. "We can't. You never loved me for who I am. You loved the idea of me, the status I brought you. It's time for both of us to face reality." I turned to leave, but Owen's desperate voice stopped me. "What am I supposed to do now? Where will we go?" I looked back at him, seeing for the first time how small and pathetic he truly was. "That's not my problem anymore, Owen. You're an adult. Figure it out." As we walked out of the condo, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The cool air hit my face, and I took a deep breath, savoring the taste of freedom. My mother squeezed my hand. "You did it, sweetheart. It's over." I nodded, tears pricking at my eyes. I just can't believe I let it go on for so long. I feel so stupid. "Hey now," my father said, pulling me into a hug. "You're one of the smartest, strongest women I know. You recognize the truth and you fought for yourself. That's something to be proud of." As we drove away from the condo complex, I watched my old life disappear in the rearview mirror. A mix of emotions swirled within me: relief, sadness, and a growing sense of excitement for the future. "So," I said, turning to my parents, "tell me more about this property management business of yours." They exchanged a smile before my mother replied, "Well, we could always use someone with your skills if you're interested." I felt a grin spread across my face. You know what? I think I am. As we drove towards my parents' home, my temporary home until I got back on my feet, I realized that this ending was really a new beginning. I had lost a husband, but I had gained something far more valuable: self-respect, a deeper connection with my family, and a future full of possibilities. The road ahead might be uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would lead. Because this time, I was in the driver's seat of my own life, and that was worth more than any luxury condo or false promise of love ever could be.
Lily, $100 a month for groceries should be more than enough if you can't make that happen. We'll just call it quits. Matt's words hung in the air like a bad smell. I stared at him, feeling a cold disbelief wash over me. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. No joke, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smug smile playing at his lips. "Prove you're not that useless, Lily, or we're done." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream. This was the man I'd married, my husband of 5 years. I took a deep breath, the anger coursing through me like wildfire. "Fine," I said, finally managing to speak. "I'll do it." Matt shrugged as if it were no big deal. "Good luck with that," he said, already turning his attention back to his laptop. I walked to the kitchen, his words echoing in my head. Useless. The man who used to praise my cooking, who loved every meal I put on our table, now reduced me to this. I grabbed a note and started jotting down meal ideas, my mind racing with determination. That night, as I lay in bed beside Matt, I stared at the ceiling. He was already asleep, completely unbothered by his cruel ultimatum. I replayed our conversation, every word a dagger to my heart, and something inside me shifted. This challenge wasn't just about groceries. It was a test of my worth, a value he'd callously questioned. I wasn't going to let him win. The next morning, I woke up early and headed to the store with my notebook in hand. I had a list carefully planned out to stretch every dollar. As I walked through the aisles, I felt a strange mix of rage and resolve fueling my steps. "I'll show him," I muttered under my breath, reaching for the discounted vegetables. By the time I returned home, I was exhausted but determined. I pulled out my phone and started filming. "Hey everyone, it's Lily. Today, we're tackling an impossible challenge: a month's worth of groceries for $100. As I chopped and cooked, I felt the knot in my chest begin to ease. The camera became my confidant. I shared recipes, tips, and tricks, pouring my heart into every post. The notifications soon started to ping. Comments, likes, new followers, total strangers cheering me on in this absurd quest. When Matt walked into the kitchen that evening, I was plating dinner. "Smells good," he said, eyeing the meal with a rare hint of approval. I didn't answer. I was too fired up, too focused on proving him wrong through every flavorful bite. As days turned into weeks, my online community grew. Each meal I managed under the budget felt like a victory, not just over Matt's challenge, but over his belittling judgment. The more successful I became online, the more I realized how much I had let myself be defined by his cruel standards. And so, with each dish and every supportive comment from my newfound followers, I built my own fortress of resilience, one recipe at a time. It wasn't just about saving money anymore. It was about reclaiming my worth, about showing Matt, and more importantly, myself, that I was far from useless. Sitting at the kitchen table, I flipped through an old photo album. The early days with Matt. Smiles, laughter, shared dreams. My fingers traced our wedding picture, pausing as the memories flooded in. "It's hard to believe we were so happy once," I murmured to myself. Our first date had been at a small Italian restaurant. Matt had been charming, attentive, hanging on to my every word. "You have an amazing smile, Lily," he had said, eyes twinkling under the dim lights. "I really like you," I replied, shy but excited about the possibilities. Back then, he appreciated everything I did at home. "This lasagna is incredible, Lily." "You spoil me," he'd say, wrapping me in a warm embrace. Those moments felt distant now, like scenes from a movie that had long since ended. I shook off the nostalgia and stared at my camera. My growing hobby on social media has become my refuge. Hey everyone, it's Lily again. Today, I'm sharing my favorite lasagna recipe. Affordable and delicious, I said, starting the recording. Cooking had always been my joy, and sharing it on social media was a way to reclaim a piece of myself. As I cooked, memories of Matt and me laughing in the kitchen played in my mind. He used to help me chop vegetables, sneaking kisses in between. But that laughter had been replaced by his cold eyes and harsh words. Scrolling through old photos, one caught my eye. A candid shot of me giggling as Matt tried to flip a pancake. The warmth of those days, the sincerity in his laughter, where had it gone? My phone buzzed, snapping me back to reality. A notification. More followers, more support. Cooking for strangers who valued my tips more than Matt had in years felt strange yet rewarding. Each comment cheered me on. "You're amazing, Lily. These recipes save me so much." While my social media presence blossomed, Matt became more distant. He spent late hours at work, giving me a generic apology when he'd bothered to offer one. "Sorry, Lily, big project. You understand," he'd say dismissively, planting a kiss on my forehead before retreating to his phone. With cooking videos and the supportive online community, I found myself less concerned about Matt's coldness. I replied to comments like I was catching up with old friends. "Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the recipe." One afternoon, I set up my camera for another video when an idea struck me. I opened the fridge and checked its sparse contents. Let's make something amazing with what we've got. Watch how we turn these scraps into a feast, I declared, hitting record. It was both a challenge and a defiance against Matt's cruel test. That night, as I set the table with a humble but delicious dinner, I waited for Matt's reaction. "This looks good," he said grudgingly, eyes not meeting mine. The praise felt hollow, almost mocking. But inside, I knew I was more than his cruel words. With every dish I shared, with every follower gained, I rebuilt my confidence. Matt would come home later and later, and the man in those happy photos felt like a stranger. But I found solace in my own growth and the strength I never knew I had. We used to laugh together, dream together. Now our home was silent except for the click of my camera and the buzz of notifications. The world cheering on a woman determined to rise above betrayal. It started slow at first. Matt's missed dinners, the cold shoulder, the excuses wrapped in important business meetings. I would wait at the table, the meals I worked hard on growing cold. Frustration bubbled under my skin. One night, he walked in well past midnight, the scent of perfume lingering around him. I sat on the couch, the dim light from the TV casting shadows across his face. Late again, I noted aloud, not even trying to mask the bitterness. "Work, Lily, you know how it is." He replied curtly, not even offering an apology this time. I watched him walk to the bedroom, anger twisting in my gut. Resolute, I logged into my social media accounts instead. The numbers had climbed again, more followers, more engagement. People were genuinely interested in my recipes, not because they had to be, but because they wanted to be. "Hang in there. You're doing amazing, Lily," one follower commented, lifting my spirits in small yet meaningful ways. As Matt's absences grew more frequent, I threw myself deeper into my content. Each meal, each new recipe shared, became my silent rebellion. It was more than cooking, it was proof of my worth. I filmed everything, from budget-friendly gourmet meals to heartfelt kitchen hacks. The community's love and support started filling the void Matt left. "Hey guys, today we're making a $5 feast," I said into the camera, a determined smile on my face. Despite everything, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. Each new like and comment validated my efforts. But the doubts still nagged at me. One afternoon, as I chopped vegetables for a new video, I broached the subject that had been on my mind. As Matt walked in the door, I turned to face him. "Matt, have you thought about starting a family?" I asked, voice steady though my heart raced. He looked at me like I had just suggested the most ridiculous thing imaginable. "A family, Lily? We can barely manage as it is. What makes you think we're ready for that?" His words were sharp, cutting deeper than the knife in my hand. "Is it really about that, or are you just not interested?" I pressed, needing to hear the truth. "Don't start with this now. I'm too tired for your nonsense," he snapped, brushing past me. Again, the sting of his rejection settled deep. With Matt coming home less and less, the house felt empty. His coldness was a stark contrast to the warmth and excitement I found online. It became routine, his late nights my growing channel. I knew something wasn't right, but I also knew I needed more than his disdain. I kept filming and posting each video, a small victory. As my success started to translate into brand deals, I felt the tide turning. The nights Matt spent away fueled my drive. Despite the pain and isolation, I found comfort in the screen glow, a beacon of hope and validation. Little did Matt know, his neglect and cruelty were pushing me towards something stronger. His distance gave me room to grow, to prepare for what was coming next. With every new follower and every night spent alone, I found resilience I never knew I had. I was on the brink of uncovering Matt's true nature, and when I did, he'd see just how strong I had become. Another day, another challenge. This would be the third week since Matt dropped the bomb with his ultimatum. My spirits were oddly high. The $100 grocery budget had become my battlefield, and I was winning. I prowled the aisles, looking for deals, comparing prices. People might say it's impossible, but I've managed to stretch every dollar. I picked up a pack of chicken thighs, discounted and perfect for multiple meals. When I returned home, I set up my camera. Hey everyone, today we're making 3 meals out of this pack of chicken. Can we do it? Of course we can. I began filming with a confidence that felt almost strange, yet very real. As my audience cheered in the comments, Matt's absence became a dull ache. His late nights continued, his presence minimal. I moved around the kitchen like an artist in her studio. Every chop of the knife was a brushstroke against the canvas of betrayal he had painted. Matt stumbled through the door later that night. I was on the couch, answering messages from my followers. He walked into the kitchen, looking around for the meal I'd prepared. "Where's dinner?" he asked, his voice gruff from another night out. "In the fridge. I saved you a plate," I replied without looking up. He grumbled as he heated it up. "You know this budget thing isn't going to work forever," he said between bites, his tone laced with condescension. "Maybe not," I replied calmly, typing another response on my phone, "but I'm making it work now." At the end of the month, I reviewed our expenses. I had done it. I proved him wrong. I filmed a special video to mark the achievement. "Hey everyone, guess what? We've completed an entire month on a $100 grocery budget. Thanks to all your support." My followers' encouraging comments poured in. Matt's reaction, however, was as heartless as ever. "So you did it. Big deal. Don't expect a medal," he said, tossing the statement carelessly over his shoulder. Frustration bubbled up, but I swallowed it down, determined not to give him the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Instead, I poured all of it into my cooking. Every critique from Matt was met with another video, another shared recipe. The tension in the house was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words. Our conversations were limited to basics, a flimsy facade of normalcy. Meanwhile, my social media presence grew stronger each day. Fans eagerly awaited my posts, and engagement skyrocketed. One evening, while editing a new video, I heard Matt on the phone in the next room. His voice was low and secretive. "Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow night, same place." I paused, the words hanging in the air. A cold realization began to form. It wasn't just work keeping him away. My hands shook as I continued editing, playing the dutiful wife while pieces of a darker puzzle slowly clicked into place. The $100 challenge had come and gone, but something far more challenging was on the horizon. But first, I needed proof. Proof that he was the vile and manipulative man I was beginning to see clearly. From that moment on, every step, every meal, every message to my followers became more than just a hobby. It was preparation for a showdown I knew was inevitable. And I would be ready. Mark my words, I would be ready. I was unloading groceries when I heard Matt's voice from the living room. He was on the phone again, talking in that hushed tone he'd adopted lately. "Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow night. Same place," he said with a disgusting smirk in his voice. "Meeting you is the only thing keeping me sane right now." My heart hammered in my chest. I crept closer, hiding behind the kitchen door. "Don't worry, Taylor. Friday night is ours. She thinks it's another late meeting." I felt the blood drain from my face. Matt was having an affair. My body moved on autopilot, arranging groceries while my mind raced. I needed proof. Later that night, lying next to the man betraying me, I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his deceit. But instead of falling apart, I felt a steely resolve harden within me. I reached out to my growing community online for the strength to follow through. The next day, I called a private investigator. "I need your help," I said, clutching the phone tight. "I think my husband is cheating on me. Let's meet. I can discuss what we'll need to do," he responded, his voice firm yet kind. After our meeting, the investigator began his work. While he gathered evidence, I threw myself back into my cooking videos on social media. I smiled and shared, all while piecing together the destruction Matt was bringing into our lives. As I documented recipes, the investigator gave me regular updates. He's definitely involved with someone named Taylor. They've been meeting at the same hotel every Friday night, he informed me one evening. It stung, but I kept calm. Thank you. Keep digging, I replied, determination underscoring every word. The evidence piled up quickly. Photos of Matt with Taylor, incriminating text messages, receipts for lavish dinners and gifts. It was sickening. Each new piece of information was both a dagger to my heart and a nail in his coffin. On the Friday of their next rendezvous, I put on my dinner table smile as Matt prepared to leave. Big project tonight? I asked sweetly. Yeah, don't wait up, he said, not meeting my eyes. Of course. Good luck, I replied, feigning innocence. Once he was gone, I sat down with the evidence, feeling a strange mix of emotions. There was anger, betrayal, and something else, relief. His demand for the $100 grocery budget, his absence, his coldness, it all made sense now. I stared at the pile of proof before me. The private investigator had even gathered videos of Matt laughing intimately with Taylor, looking at her the way he used to look at me. The anger simmered, but I held it back. The next morning, I confronted Matt, evidence spread out on the table. Care to explain this? I asked, my voice steady but cold. His face went pale, eyes widening as he took in the photos and texts. It's not what it looks like, he started, but I cut him off. Save it. I know everything about Taylor, about the money you've been wasting on this affair. You thought making me stretch $100 would distract me. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The shock, the guilt, the realization of what he'd done, it was all written on his face. From now on, you're on your own, I said, packing the evidence into a folder. I'll be talking to a lawyer. We're done, Matt. As I walked away, I felt lighter, stronger. Out of Matt's betrayal, I had found my own power. And this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The weight of what I'd uncovered gave me no rest. But today was different. Today wasn't about waiting. It was about action. As Matt stumbled into the kitchen, barely awake, he didn't even glance at me. Where's my breakfast? He growled, his usual demands cutting through the silence. I met his eyes with an icy stare. You want something to eat? I tossed a crumpled $2 bill on the table. Here's $2. Get yourself some cheap junk. Figure the rest out yourself. He froze, confusion and anger flashing across his face. What do you mean? This is ridiculous, he protested. Ridiculous. You think your affair is ridiculous. I know everything, Matt. Taylor, the hotels, the money you've wasted. I threw the folder of evidence onto the table, its contents spilling out. His face turned sickly pale. Lily, I can explain, he pleaded. No, you can't. I kept my voice firm, every word a blow to his crumbling facade. You pushed me to prove my worth, you tested me. Now it's my turn. I watched him scramble to find words, any words. But there was nothing left to say. I reveled in the silence, then turned and walked away, leaving him amidst the evidence of his betrayal. Once I was out of the house, I called my lawyer. I need to file for divorce, and I want to make sure he pays for what he's done, I told her. My lawyer, Sarah, didn't miss a beat. Gather all financial records, any proof of infidelity, anything that shows misconduct. We'll make sure he gets what he deserves. Armed with her guidance and my newfound determination, I dove into preparing my case. At the same time, my social media following was buzzing. Subtly, I started sharing snippets of my story without mentioning Matt directly. Sometimes life throws challenges that test our strength. I posted alongside a photo of a simple yet elegant meal. The comments overflowed with support, my online community rallying around me in ways I'd never expected. Each day, I became more focused. Sarah and I met regularly, carefully piecing together the case that would ensure justice. Meanwhile, Matt's attempts at reconciliation became more desperate. "Lily, can we talk?" He pleaded one evening, blocking my path in the hallway. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied, pushing past him with a cold stare. His workplace caught wind of his affair soon after. Whispers and side glances followed him in the office. Taylor, now exposed, tried to keep her distance, leaving him more alone than ever. As my cooking brand continued to rise, I felt the tide shifting. My focus wasn't revenge for its own sake. It was reclaiming my life, my worth. I plunged into new projects, developing recipes, and making plans for a future without Matt. On the day of our court hearing, I walked into the courthouse with Sarah by my side. Matt looked gaunt, defeated. The evidence was overwhelming, and the judgment was swift. He would pay dearly, financially through alimony, and socially as his reputation lay in tatters. As we exited the courtroom, Sarah turned to me, her smile filled with genuine warmth. "You did it," she said. I nodded, a weight lifting off my shoulders. This was just the beginning. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. It wasn't just about winning the case. It was the freedom from years of deceit and manipulation. But the journey wasn't over. Matt's world was only beginning to crumble. The first crack appeared when Taylor publicly distanced herself from him. "I can't be associated with this mess," she told him during their last clandestine meeting, which ironically wasn't so clandestine anymore. The private investigator had made sure those images surfaced at just the right time. Matt staggered into the house late that evening, a shadow of his former self. "Lily, please, can we talk?" His voice was strained, desperate. I glanced at him with detached indifference. "We have nothing left to discuss. You made sure of that." He tried to approach, but I stepped back, a barrier he couldn't cross. He was imploding, and for the first time, I felt nothing but a cold, distant satisfaction. That night, I posted a new video, my mind whirling with new ideas. "Hey everyone, today's recipe is all about fresh starts and new beginnings. Let's make something amazing." The community's responses poured in, each comment a brick in the new foundation I was building. Meanwhile, Matt's downfall accelerated. News of his affair leaked to his boss, and the company couldn't risk the scandal. He was summoned to a meeting and returned home with a cardboard box filled with his desk remnants. "I lost my job, Lily," he muttered helplessly, dropping the box by the door. "Not my problem," I said, not even bothering to look up from my laptop. I was deep into planning my next online event, a cooking class live stream that was already attracting sponsors. Days turned into weeks, each one worse for Matt. Without his job, his income plummeted. The judgment from the court added a financial strain he couldn't handle alone. His so-called friends vanished, each slipping away to avoid the mess he had become. One evening, sipping coffee in my new favorite cafe, I received an email. My first cookbook was officially published and ready for pre-order. I could hardly contain my excitement. I shared the news with my followers, the comments overflowing with encouragement and pride. Returning home, I found Matt rummaging through old bills, his despair palpable. "I don't know how to fix this, Lily," he said, tears brimming in his eyes. "That's your mess to clean up," I replied coolly. "You brought this on yourself." Watching him unravel was a stark reminder of the man he truly was. A man who tried to break me but ended up shattering himself. I felt a strange sense of closure. Moving forward, I immersed myself in new projects, cooking segments, sponsorship deals, and community events. Each success was mine alone, a testament to my resilience. Matt moved out a month later, defeated and broken. The house, now silent without his toxicity, became my sanctuary. I redecorated, shifting from old memories to new aspirations. From the ashes of betrayal, a stronger me had emerged. With my growing brand and supportive followers, I was ready to embrace a future untethered from the past. My story wasn't about revenge or loss anymore. It was about rebirth, a new chapter waiting to be written. The first morning in my new apartment was surreal. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the minimalist furniture I'd carefully chosen. The space felt fresh, free from the shadows of the past. I brewed a cup of coffee and took a deep breath. The air smelled like potential, like new beginnings. With my recipe book published and my social media thriving, today marked the start of something beautiful. I sat down at my kitchen counter, scrolling through messages from followers. Congratulations on the new book, Lily. Can't wait to try the recipes. Each comment felt like a step farther from my old life. As the day progressed, I finalized details for a cooking event, a live class that had drawn considerable interest. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, each one a reminder that I was building something all on my own. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was a delivery. A bouquet of vibrant sunflowers with a note. To new beginnings, with love, your fans. I smiled, placing the flowers on the table. Their brightness mirrored my newfound optimism. Later, preparing for the live stream, I couldn't help but think of how far I'd come. The screen blinked to life, and hundreds of faces filled the grid, each one eager to learn from me. Welcome, everyone. Today we're making a special recipe from my new book. It's all about transformation, taking simple ingredients and turning them into something extraordinary. I began, the excitement in my voice matched by the enthusiasm in the comments. The interaction was electric, each step met with applause, each tip eagerly absorbed. I felt a deep connection, a shared journey of resilience and growth. By the end, the chat was filled with praise and gratitude. Thank you, Lily. You've inspired us so much, one comment said. No, thank you, I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. You've all been my strength. After the class, I settled into the quiet of my apartment, reflecting on the path that led me here. The old life with Matt felt like a distant memory, a heavy coat I had finally shrugged off. A few days later, I heard through mutual friends that Matt was struggling. His new job was low-paying, and Taylor had left him after realizing he couldn't provide the lifestyle she wanted. There was no satisfaction in his misery, only a reminder of what I'd escaped. I poured my energy into new projects, expanding my cooking brand, planning future books, and engaging more deeply with my online community. Each venture was a brick in the sturdy foundation of my new life. One evening, as I signed copies of my book at a local bookstore, a woman approached me. Lily, your journey has been so inspiring. You gave me the courage to leave my own toxic relationship. Her words touched me deeply. Thank you. It means the world to hear that we all have the strength to rebuild, even when it feels impossible. As I returned to my apartment that night, the city lights twinkling outside, I felt a profound sense of peace. The woman's words lingered in my mind, solidifying my purpose. Revenge had given way to something much more fulfilling: empowerment, growth, and the unwavering belief that I could forge my own path. My past with Matt was a chapter closed, and I was ready to write the rest of my story, one filled with hope, resilience, and endless possibilities. I was enjoying a peaceful life, content with a stable job that paid well. My world was turned upside down one day when my credit card company called to inform me about a suspicious $50,000 charge on my account. I was utterly taken aback by this news. I acted swiftly to stop the charge, and in the aftermath, my husband, who was then overseas, bombarded me with phone calls. With some effort, we managed to clear up the confusion. My name is Alexis. I'm 7 years old, and I've climbed the career ladder to become a manager. My journey began in college where I met Paul, my husband, who is of the same age. This year marks our 3rd wedding anniversary. Many of my acquaintances chose to leave their jobs upon getting married, but I had compelling reasons to continue working despite societal norms. I am the primary breadwinner in our household, earning more than my husband. This fact is an unspoken element of our marriage, yet it looms large in my mind. I often ponder our financial stability, concerned that relying solely on my husband's earnings might not secure the future we envision. Nonetheless, it's clear he shares these concerns, even if we seldom discuss them directly. Financial independence is key. We maintain separate finances, equally splitting household expenses. A system that affords me the freedom to manage my discretionary income as I see fit. This arrangement has fostered a sense of satisfaction and has contributed significantly to our comfortable lifestyle. However, there are moments that prompt me to reconsider our expenses. One such instance occurred while I was reviewing my email notifications on the train home. Frowning upon seeing a debit alert, it served as a reminder to reevaluate my ongoing subscriptions, contemplating the necessity of each. Yet the task of managing these financial obligations often falls by the wayside, complicated by forgotten passwords and the daunting prospect of navigating customer service hotlines. The restricted availability of these services, confined to standard working hours, does little to ease the situation, creating a paradox for working individuals like myself who'd find it nearly impossible to reach out during these times. Despite these hurdles, I find solace in the small pleasures of life, like online shopping. It serves as a brief escape from the pressure of work, with the arrival of each parcel bringing a fleeting moment of joy. Yet these moments of happiness are quickly overshadowed by the realization of the need to manage my finances more prudently. The comfort of returning home always brings a sense of relief, a reminder of the stable life we've built together. Despite the occasional financial folly, when I walked into the living room, I immediately felt annoyed. Socks were scattered on the floor, empty cans were on the table, and there were a phone and a sweatshirt on the sofa. Yes, this was my husband's doing. He tends to leave a mess everywhere after he gets home. I couldn't help but complain about the socks and cans. He just shrugged it off, saying it was easy to clean up, and I could just do it if I was home early. Why couldn't he help clean or make dinner? He complained about being tired and having to eat convenience store food. I was tired too, but I argued that if he wasn't going to help around the house, he should at least focus on his work. He didn't take my frustrations seriously at first, but I could tell he was annoyed when he repeated his dismissal. He left the room, glued to his phone and ignoring my glare. It felt unfair that I was doing more work in housekeeping, yet I wondered if I'd been too harsh. I worried he might become even more careless just to spite me. Surprisingly, my words seemed to have an effect. He started coming home late, claiming he had overtime work. It seemed like he was trying to change. I was so pleased that I began to put even more effort into the housework, thinking I should support him since he was busy. One day, I came home early and decided to tidy up his room, which he hadn't cleaned in a while. It was a mess, just as I expected, with empty cans and bottles everywhere. I was about to throw them out when I noticed something unusual on the bed, a gift-wrapped package. I couldn't clearly make out what it was at first, so I decided to shine a light on the mysterious object. It turned out to be a bag from my favorite brand, beautifully wrapped and just sitting there, partially hidden. The realization hit me, could this be a surprise birthday present? My birthday was just around the corner, the following week to be exact. A flicker of excitement passed through me, but I quickly suppressed it, choosing to act as if I hadn't seen the package. I wanted to keep the surprise intact, assuming my husband had planned to give it to me on my special day. However, my much-anticipated birthday came and went without any mention of the package. I couldn't help but bring up the subject, half in jest, half in hope, asking my husband if he remembered what day it was. His reaction was one of brief surprise, followed by an awkward acknowledgement of my birthday. But when I prodded him about a celebration or a gift, his response was dismissive, almost as if gifting was an obligation fulfilled in the past and not to be bothered with again, especially now that I was old enough. His words stung more than I cared to admit, and he retreated to his room, leaving me in a mix of confusion and disappointment. The situation took an even more peculiar turn when, out of the blue, my husband announced he was scheduled for an overseas business trip the following week. This was unprecedented. His job had never required travel before, let alone an international trip. He attributed this sudden opportunity to his recent good performance at work. Under normal circumstances, I would have been supportive, even happy for him. However, the unexplained birthday gift and his nonchalant dismissal of my birthday had planted seeds of doubt in my mind. On the morning of his supposed departure, I watched him leave, my heart heavy with a mix of emotions. Once he was gone, I couldn't resist the urge to investigate further. I ventured into his room, a place I hadn't stepped into since the day I discovered the hidden gift. My heart raced as I looked under the bed where the gift had been, only to find nothing. The absence of the package confirmed my suspicions. There was more to the story than he was letting on. This wasn't about a business trip. It was something else entirely. Dragging myself to work that day felt like moving through molasses. My thoughts were elsewhere, caught in a loop of doubts, fears, and unspoken questions about my husband's actions and intentions. I struggled to concentrate, my work suffering as a result. My colleagues noticed my distraction, inquiring if everything was okay. I brushed off their concern with a weak excuse about lack of sleep, not willing to share the turmoil swirling inside me. Amidst this inner chaos, my phone vibrated with an incoming call from an unknown number. Normally, I would ignore such calls, but given the day's earlier revelations and my heightened state of anxiety, I felt compelled to answer. Maybe it was intuition, or perhaps desperation for any piece of information that could shed light on the situation. I picked up the phone, my heart pounding in anticipation of what or who awaited on the other end. I had to step out for a bit and press the button to answer my phone in the hallway. It was the credit card company calling. I started worrying it wasn't my husband calling. I realized I would have to share my password and other details. I wondered what they wanted, and the person on the phone quickly explained they were calling because my account showed more than $20,000 spent. Actually, $50,000. I couldn't believe it and panicked, thinking there was no way that was right. I hurried back to my desk to check my wallet, but it was missing along with a credit card that should have been inside. I got back on the phone and asked if I could stop the transaction. Luckily, it was still pending, so they said I could stop it. I felt a bit better, but knew this wasn't the end of it. I told them I didn't have my card and asked them to treat it as if it were stolen. The person agreed to start the process right away. Even after hanging up, my heart wouldn't calm down. I told my boss I was feeling sick, that my credit card might have been stolen and misused, and I needed to leave early to sort things out. My colleagues and boss were concerned and let me go home. Rushing to catch the train, I saw my husband had called me many times, almost as if he had something to do with this mess. I got home, tossed my bag aside, and went straight to my husband's room. I opened his computer to check his search history and saw luxury cruises and travel packages for couples at the top. I wasn't supposed to know about any trip. I checked the destination and realized this was the business trip he mentioned. It was clear it wasn't a business trip at all. I looked through my emails and found it. A booking confirmation with the name Mario on it. Who is this woman? I was so angry I nearly broke the keyboard. But I forced myself to look for more proof. My phone kept ringing, driving me crazy. I remembered the password the credit card company gave me, so I logged in to check my spending history. As I looked through it, my shock grew. There was a charge I didn't recognize for a fancy bag. Everything clicked. Paul had used my card to buy something for his mistress, and even took her on what he claimed was a business trip. Frustrated and angry, I finally answered my constantly ringing phone. My husband was on the other end, complaining about the card not working. I confronted him about Anne, and he stumbled over his words, claiming he didn't steal the card, but borrowed it for convenience on his business trip. I questioned him about the so-called business trip and mentioned the luxury cruise. He tried to dodge the question, but I pressed on about Anne and the bag. He tried to act confused, but I laid out everything I knew. The cruise, the couple's travel package, the $50,000 spending, and the payments to Anne using my card. Hearing all this, my husband could only repeat, "I understand," as if finally realizing the gravity of the situation. After he admitted to cheating and awkwardly apologized over the phone, pleading for me to reactivate the credit card so he could return home, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. His assumption that a simple apology would erase his betrayal was absurd. I sharply told him to enjoy his indefinite stay at the resort, effectively ending our relationship with that phone call. Ignoring his attempts to continue the conversation, I hung up. His persistent calls soon followed, each ringtone amplifying my frustration, until I decided to block his number, seeking some peace from the incessant buzzing. Knowing his return flight was scheduled for noon in 3 days, as per the booking confirmation email he never intended for me to see, I sprang into action. These 3 days would be pivotal. My first task was daunting but necessary. I began the process of removing all my belongings from our shared home, severing the physical ties that bound us. The following day, armed with divorce papers and his computer, which contained undeniable evidence of his infidelity, I visited his parents. The revelation of their son's actions left them both furious and deeply apologetic. Their immediate response was supportive. They assured me of a swift divorce, a generous alimony of $145,000, and reimbursement for the expenses their son had wastefully incurred. As the day of his supposed return arrived, I received confirmation from his parents that the divorce papers were processed. They shared that apart from the illicit credit card expenditures, he had not taken any money. The other woman, having learned of the entire fiasco, was enraged. In a fit of anger, she changed her ticket to leave for Singapore before him, leaving him stranded. It puzzled me why she hadn't taken more drastic measures, like taking his passport, to further complicate his return. When he finally arrived back in Singapore, he was greeted by the stark reality of an empty home and a disconnected phone number, mine. In desperation, he sought solace at his parents' house, only to be met with severe reprimand. They insisted he sign the divorce papers, officially ending our marriage. Complicating matters further, the woman now demanded from him a repayment of the $50,000 she presumably felt entitled to given their affair and its lavish expenditures. His parents once again had to cover this amount, but with the stipulation that he repay them in full. Until then, his lifestyle was significantly curtailed, much like that of a strictly supervised teenager, complete with a 9:00 p.m. curfew. In the aftermath, armed with the necessary details from his parents, I pursued legal action against the woman for $7,000, seeking some form of restitution for the role she played in this ordeal. With that final act, I concluded this tumultuous chapter of my life, ready to move forward, free from the deceit and betrayal that had ensnared me. The next day, I went back to work. A lot of my coworkers, both my seniors and juniors, showed they cared about me. They asked, "Hey, are you okay? I'm here to listen if you need to talk." It made me feel thankful to work with such kind people. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Let's grab a drink sometime, my treat. It'll be like a venting session, I suggested. They agreed, and it felt good to let out everything that happened while we shared some drinks. It was like I was washing away all the bad memories. I ended the night feeling hopeful, thinking that from now on, only good things would come my way. Yes, that's right, I told myself, feeling optimistic about the future. Hello, I'm Karen, an architect by profession. Today, I'm embracing a new role, that of a bride filled with anticipation. As I make my way down the aisle, every aspect of our wedding, from the vibrant blooms to the carefully curated playlist, reflects my detailed planning. I've always envisioned this day as a page lifted from a romance novel, a joyful celebration of our love. At the altar, I see Terry, my soon-to-be husband, an engineer whose pragmatic, down-to-earth approach complements my artistic spirit. Together, we felt like the ideal pair, each enhancing the other's strengths. As I draw closer, I notice a hint of concern in Terry's eyes, though I attribute it to typical pre-wedding nerves. Nearby, I overhear Terry's mother, Melissa, whispering with an intense, unsettling look. Despite her smiles and compliments, her eyes seem to tell a different story. The ceremony moves forward, but Terry's vows feel somewhat cold, and there's a noticeable hesitation before his "I do." During the ring exchange, Melissa makes a point of taking photos, her tone more cautious than celebratory. At the reception, Melissa delivers subtly critical compliments about my dress. She praises its beauty while gently critiquing its unconventional style, lightly noting that we're celebrating love in our unique way. I brush off Melissa's veiled criticisms about our wedding choices. But before things can escalate, Terry steps in, asking his mother for a private moment with me. His intervention feels more like a resignation than genuine support, adding a strange note to what should be a day of happiness. Looking around the room for reassurance, I hope to find comfort amid the wedding chaos. Yet I can't shake the feeling that something fundamental isn't right. The tension is palpable, and the warning signs are too prominent to ignore any longer. As Terry and I step onto the dance floor for our first dance, the physical space between us mirrors the emotional gulf. Although we move in sync, emotionally we are worlds apart. The song meant to symbolize our union now seems ironically cruel. As the last notes of the music die away, Terry's attempt at comfort only highlighted the deepening gap between us. "So, Mrs. Karen, ready for forever?" he asked, the irony of his question thick in the air. I wanted to share my uncertainties, to question if our future together would always be shadowed by today's discomfort. Instead, I hid my doubts behind a tentative smile, clinging to the hope that the dark clouds hanging over us would eventually clear, and that this rocky beginning wasn't a preview of our future. Little did I know, this day was just the prelude to a challenging period that would test not only the resilience of our marriage, but also the core of my identity. As we raised our glasses in a toast to our union, the celebratory words rang hollow, eclipsed by an unsettling sense of loss. The journey back to my home, a charming 3-bedroom house that symbolized my hard-won independence, marked the start of our shared life. This space was meant to be our sanctuary, the solid foundation for our future together. However, it quickly turned into the battleground for a series of conflicts that felt more like intrusions than the beginnings of marital harmony. Melissa, residing just a short distance away, began to drop by with alarming regularity, often uninvited. Her criticisms were relentless, targeting everything from my cooking to the decor of our home. Whether she was complaining about the taste of my dishes or the choice of bathroom tiles, her critiques were varied yet consistently harsh. Terry's efforts to mediate were weak at best, seeming more performative than genuinely protective. Melissa's intrusions became a regular ordeal. Each visit was another chance for her to assert dominance through thinly veiled insults and critiques. The turning point came one afternoon when Melissa arrived with suitcases in tow, her intentions clear and her sense of entitlement palpable. "This is no ordinary visit," she declared, breezing past me to place her luggage in my favorite cozy corner by the window, a haven for my quiet reflection and reading. "This spot will suit me just fine," Melissa announced, her tone leaving no room for argument. As I watched Melissa settle into our home, my heart sank. I caught Terry's eye, silently pleading for him to step in and protect the sanctity of the place we called ours. In a moment that called for unity, I pulled him aside, my voice shaking with emotion. "This is our home, Terry. Shouldn't we have talked about this together?" His look was distant, missing the warmth that had once comforted me. "Mom's getting older, Karen. It's not fair for her to be alone. She needs to be with family," he explained, emphasizing family in a way that made me feel more like an outsider than a partner. "So I'm not family, is that it?" The words stumbled out, heavy with hurt as tears began to form. Terry replied quickly, his patience thinning. "You know that's not what I mean, Karen, but I owe it to her." "What about what we owe to each other? Aren't we supposed to be building our life together, not adjusting it to include your mom as a permanent third?" I argued, feeling as though my words were just bouncing off him. My concerns, my feelings seemed to vanish into thin air, and just like that, the decision was made. Melissa's presence in our home was a done deal. With Melissa in the house, the atmosphere changed drastically. Every space that once held our shared dreams now carried the burden of tension and disagreement. My treasured reading nook was overrun with her belongings, the kitchen transformed into a constant battlefield of her critiques. Terry, the man I married, now seemed to be more in sync with Melissa than with me. It dawned on me that this battle was not just for my marriage or my personal space, but for my identity, my dignity, and my peace. How did we get here? How had my desires, my space, and my voice become secondary to Melissa's preferences? The transformation was dark. My beloved nook became a symbol of Melissa's encroachment, the kitchen a venue for her endless criticism, and my husband a stranger aligned with what felt like an adversary. This was only the beginning. Life, already filled with challenges, spiraled into a relentless nightmare as the oppressive atmosphere in our home mirrored the diminishing of my own space and voice. Amidst this mounting tension, a discovery brought everything into sharp focus. The unmistakable sight of 2 lines on a pregnancy test, signaling the start of a new life. In the chaos, discovering I was pregnant should have been a joyous revelation. However, the dense, tense air around me turned almost suffocating as I held the pregnancy test, my hands trembling with a mix of excitement and dread. This milestone, which I had always imagined would be one of the happiest moments of my life, now felt like an overwhelming burden. Alone in the bathroom, tears welled up as I confronted my reflection, the reality hitting me hard. The stakes were now much higher. When I finally shared the news with Terry, his reaction was underwhelming. "Well, that's something," he muttered, quickly shifting the conversation to some renovation idea his mother had proposed. Melissa didn't just see my pregnancy as big news. She saw it as her new project. She took it upon herself to manage every aspect of it, from my diet to the birthing plan, all under the guise of being helpful. Her interference soon became oppressive. She critiqued every bite I ate, casting judgmental glances at even the simplest meals and questioning my weight management. Despite my assurances that everything was doctor-approved, she scoffed. Doctors these days have no clue, dismissively convinced her old-school methods were superior to modern medical advice. As my pregnancy advanced, Melissa's control over my life grew even more intrusive. She expected me to maintain our home to her strict standards, regardless of my physical state. "Karen, why isn't the living room clean yet?" She would demand, comfortably ensconced in my reading nook, which she had taken over as her base for endless phone scrolling and TV watching. My pleas for rest were ignored, with Melissa dismissing pregnancy as no excuse for laziness. Terry's silence during these interactions only deepened the tension. His lack of support became painfully clear, especially during a dinner that escalated into a heated argument over baby names. Melissa sharply criticized my chosen name, and that was the final straw. "Enough, Melissa. This is my child, and I will decide how to name them," I asserted, my patience finally snapping. Her response was one of sheer indignation, as if my desire to control my own life was a direct affront to her. Terry's feeble attempts at mediation, often siding with his mother and dismissing me as overly emotional, only widened the rift between us. This growing divide underscored a stark reality. I was not only battling for my voice and space in my own home, but now, more critically, for the right to shape my future and that of my child. In all the chaos, the revelation that I was pregnant deepened the already suffocating atmosphere of our home. Holding the pregnancy test, my hands trembled with a mix of anticipation and dread. I had always imagined that discovering I was pregnant would be one of the most joyful moments in my life, filled with excitement and celebration. However, as I stood alone in the bathroom, facing my reflection with tears welling up, this milestone felt like a daunting burden instead. When I shared the news with Terry, his reaction was disappointingly subdued. "Well, that's something," he muttered, quickly changing the subject to a renovation idea his mother had proposed. It was clear that Melissa viewed my pregnancy not just as news, but as her new project. She took it upon herself to oversee everything from my diet to the birthing plan, all under the pretense of being helpful. Melissa's interference soon evolved into outright control. She monitored every bite I ate, casting judgmental glances at even the simplest meals and questioning my weight management, despite my assurances that my diet was doctor-approved. She scoffed, "Doctors these days have no clue," utterly convinced her dated knowledge was superior to contemporary medical advice. As my pregnancy progressed, Melissa's demands grew increasingly unreasonable. She expected me to maintain the house to her exacting standards, no matter my condition. "Karen, why isn't the living room clean yet?" she would demand, ensconced in my once peaceful reading nook, which she had commandeered for endless phone scrolling and TV watching. My pleas for rest were ignored. Melissa dismissed pregnancy as no excuse for laziness. Terry's silence during these interactions only intensified the tension. His lack of support became glaringly obvious, especially during a dinner that spiraled into an argument over baby names. Melissa's harsh critique of my chosen name was the last straw. "Enough, Melissa. This is my child, and I will decide how to name them," I declared, my patience completely eroded. Her reaction was one of sheer indignation, as if my desire to make decisions about my own life was a direct insult to her. Terry's feeble attempts at mediation, often siding with his mother and dismissing me as overly emotional, only deepened the rift between us. I felt more isolated than ever, trapped in a home that had transformed into a battleground. Where my voice seemed increasingly insignificant, it was no longer just about selecting a baby name. It was about reclaiming my autonomy, my dignity, and the sense of belonging that had been steadily undermined by Melissa's domineering presence. As I stared at the reflection of my once gleaming wedding ring, I scarcely recognized the woman looking back at me. A woman who was gradually losing everything she cherished. Her sanctuary, her self-respect, and most painfully, her resolve to stand up for herself. During one of our tense confrontations, Melissa, brimming with a vindictive sense of triumph, delivered a blow that changed everything. Melissa had insinuated that perhaps I didn't belong in their family if I couldn't handle a simple disagreement. The most excruciating part, though, was Terry's silence. His lack of response was deafening, reinforcing the notion that this struggle had been my harsh reality for much too long. Days melded into one another as I moved through a house that felt less and less like home, clinging to the sole beacon of hope I had left, the life growing inside me. Yet even this small comfort seemed under siege in the increasingly toxic environment. The tipping point came on a cold evening during yet another fraught family dinner. Despite my efforts to craft a flawless meal, Melissa's criticisms were relentless, attacking everything from the seasoning to the execution. Each of her harsh words felt like a physical blow, slowly chipping away at my already brittle confidence. But it was her next taunt, questioning my capability as a mother based on my so-called failure to manage household chores, that cut the deepest. Terry's quiet acceptance of her words was the final push I needed. Fueled by a potent mix of pent-up resentment and sheer desperation, I found my voice. I've been carrying our child, managing our home, and enduring endless criticism from your mother, and you're telling me to step it up. The shock on their faces was evident, but I was past caring. For too long, I had allowed myself to be diminished and demeaned. But in that moment, I reclaimed my voice. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. The clarity of my decision sliced through years of suppressed feelings like a beacon of light. It was a declaration of my refusal to endure any more disrespect or emotional torment. My voice quivered with emotion as I spoke, yet I remained resolute. I refuse to raise my child in an environment where their mother is constantly undermined. If this is your idea of family, count me out. I declared, my words ringing with finality. As I rose from the dinner table, leaving their stunned silence behind, gathering only the essentials, I made my way to the door, my hands trembling as I reached for the handle, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere. Melissa, this house is mine. I bought it. I decide who stays and who goes. Terry's voice broke through, laced with desperation. Karen, please, let's talk about this. But I was beyond negotiation. There's nothing left to discuss, I replied, my tears bearing witness to the agony of my decision. Stepping out into the cold night felt like the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one filled with uncertainty, but also tinged with a profound sense of liberation. The closing door behind me marked the end of a tumultuous saga, a final farewell to a life I could no longer endure. With each step, a mix of pain and determination coursed through me, fueled by the urgent need to reclaim my autonomy. The journey to my parents' home blurred with cold exhaustion and heartache. Just moments from the sanctuary of my childhood haven, a stumble sent me crashing to the ground. The physical pain was a mere echo of my inner turmoil, yet far from deterring me, this fall only strengthened my resolve. Arriving at my parents' doorstep, the concern on their faces mirrored the gravity of my situation. As they rushed me to the hospital, I realized that this moment of vulnerability marked not just an end, but also a new beginning. Lying in the hospital bed, coming to terms with my reality, I knew that returning to my former life was no longer an option. This breaking point was a crucial step towards reclaiming the life and dignity that had been stripped away from me. A painful yet necessary transition towards healing and independence. The clarity that comes with such pivotal moments was profound, illuminating the path forward from the shadows of my troubled past to a future I would shape myself. Amidst a whirlwind of emotions, I stood surrounded by the comforting yet anxious presence of my parents. Their silent worry spoke volumes about their fears concerning the true state of my marriage, now starkly revealed in its troubled depths. Breaking the heavy silence, my mother voiced her concern, her words laden with the weight of the unfolding reality. "Karen, dear, what's your plan now?" Unsure yet resolute, I replied, "I'm not sure, Mom, but one thing's for sure. I can't go back to that life. Not now, not ever." My declaration, more assured than I expected, resonated with newfound determination. My father, who had been pacing anxiously, paused to offer reassurance, emphasizing their unwavering support regardless of my decision. He urged me to consider not just my future, but also the child growing inside me. His words prompted a silent acknowledgement from me. My mind had been a battleground of uncertain scenarios, each fraught with a possibility of a fresh start. The unexpected buzz of my phone shattered my reverie. A message from Terry, a plea for communication. Yet to me, his timing felt like a door long closed, his words unseen. Left hanging in the void as I powered off my phone, a symbolic end to our dialogue. My next steps became clear, marked by action rather than words. Consulting a family lawyer was my first decisive act toward untangling the turmoil of my marriage. With the unwavering support of my parents, we navigated the cold, legal breakdown of our union, discussing divorce, custody arrangements, and financial support. Despite the sterile nature of these discussions, they empowered me, marking the initial steps towards seizing control of my destiny and securing the well-being of my unborn child. Within a week, Terry and Melissa received the formal notices. Divorce papers for Terry and an eviction notice for Melissa from the home that was legally mine. Alongside these were demands for substantial child support and compensation for the emotional turmoil I had endured. Though drastic, these actions were imperative, severing the ties that had long bound me to a life of despair. When I eventually re-engaged with my phone, it was inundated with Terry's attempts to reconnect. His messages carried a blend of regret and a plea for reconciliation, yet the wounds inflicted by nights of humiliation, years of neglect, and Melissa's calculated malice, all silently condoned by Terry, ran too deep. The fleeting temptation to entertain his overtures was swiftly overshadowed by the memory of enduring pain. This moment wasn't merely about closing a chapter. It was about reclaiming my narrative, where the shadows of the past no longer dictated the brightness of my future. The love I once harbored for Terry had been utterly overshadowed by the grief of our disintegrating marriage. Taking decisive steps, I cleared away all remnants of him from my life. I deleted his messages, erased his contact details, and blocked him on all social media. To me, Terry had become a chapter of my past, a distressing period I was more than ready to close. I knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Navigating a divorce with a child on the way was no simple journey. But I was determined to forge my path, stepping away from the stifling shadows that had once engulfed me toward a future brimming with hope. On the day of the court proceedings, the room was permeated with a sterile chill, characteristic of spaces where fates are decided. Seated beside me, my lawyer radiated confidence, while my parents provided silent yet steadfast support from behind. Across the aisle, Terry appeared lost, slowly coming to terms with the reality before him, while Melissa's expression fluctuated between shock and defiance. As the session commenced and the judge entered, prompting everyone to rise, a whirlwind of legal motions and arguments unfolded. It seemed as though Melissa and Terry were truly seeing the repercussions of their actions for the first time, not just through the legal ramifications, but through my eyes as well. When Melissa was called to testify, her usual bravado faded. She tried to justify her intrusions as concern for her son's well-being, but her arguments fell flat under the judge's skeptical scrutiny. The judge delivered a clear and firm verdict. I was granted a full divorce and sole custody of our unborn child. Terry was mandated to provide child support, and Melissa was hit with a substantial fine for emotional abuse and harassment, leaving her visibly shaken. As the judge's gavel fell, I felt a wave of liberation mixed with a tinge of melancholy. My marriage had not ended with loud confrontations, but rather with the quiet shuffling of papers and the firm, unwavering voice of justice. This chapter of my life was now firmly closed, paving the way for a fresh start free from the burdens of the past. The cost of my newfound freedom was something I could never have anticipated on the day I exchanged vows. Exiting the courtroom, Terry approached with a look of bewilderment, voicing his remorse and disbelief at how our lives had unraveled. Yet as I looked into his eyes, I no longer saw my future, but a profound void where love had once lived. I never envisioned this as our ending, Terry, but apologies can't undo what's been done, I stated firmly, turning away to leave the past behind. Melissa saw my gaze, perhaps in search of forgiveness or acknowledgement. However, I could not afford that closure. She had taken too much from me. Refusing to grant Melissa the satisfaction of seeing any further impact on my spirit, I stepped into the embrace of the outside world, which seemed to welcome me with open arms. The sun shone brighter, the colors appeared more vibrant. It felt as if I was seeing through a new lens, one not clouded by the shadows of past turmoil. My mother's embrace and her words of pride brought tears to my eyes. "You're truly free now, Karen," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have faced this without you and Dad." I responded, my heart swelling with gratitude for their steadfast support. That evening, in the tranquility of what was now solely my home, I discovered a profound peace. Alone yet far from lonely, for the first time in what felt like forever, I was free to live on my terms. The path ahead as a single mother seemed daunting, yet as I felt my unborn child's gentle movements, a wave of confidence washed over me. We would navigate this journey together. I was certain of it. The trials I had endured had brought me to this juncture of self-discovery. Although they left scars, these scars told a story of resilience, not surrender. Gazing toward the horizon, I felt propelled not merely by circumstances but by choice. This realization imbued me with a profound sense of empowerment, poised to embrace the future. I was motivated not out of obligation, but from a place of deliberate determination. I recognized this moment as the dawn of a significant new chapter in my life, ready to take on whatever lay ahead with a renewed spirit and unwavering resolve. Isn't it stunning? It's more than just pretty. It's a pink diamond priced at a hefty $70,000. My mother-in-law, who didn't even attend my own mother's funeral, seems to be thoroughly enjoying a luxurious trip with her friends, paying no attention to me. With great enthusiasm, she told me about her new pink diamond ring. It seemed she was driven by a sense of competition with a friend who had recently shown off a similar ring. Proudly, she boasted about having purchased a more costly ring from the same jeweler, believing she had outshone her friend. However, the truth behind her extravagant purchase is quite troubling. It's highly unlikely she could afford such an expensive piece on her own, and it was later revealed that she had secretly taken money from my husband's safe to buy the ring. This money was vital for her care, as it was set aside for her nursing home expenses. My name is Angela. I am 44 years old and live with my husband, William, who is 5 years older than me, and our daughter, Lauren, who is a senior in high school. Although we're not rich, we manage a stable life. I've been working part-time at a local drugstore for more than 14 years. One of my passions is growing herbs, and I've recently been working towards a medical herb certification. Lauren and I often talk about her future aspirations, which fills us with happiness. 8 months ago, my father-in-law passed away, leading to significant changes in our modest lifestyle. According to his will, my husband William inherited the house, and the cash went to my mother-in-law, which was meant to cover her nursing home costs. Despite this, she tearfully pleaded to live with us in the house, and after much discussion, we agreed to let her stay for a year while we looked for a suitable place for her. The neighborhood where our family home is located has recently transformed into a sought-after upscale residential area. Despite this, we are not wealthy. The land has been in our family for years. I knew my mother-in-law had a tendency to spend money without thinking, but living with her brought its harsh realities into stark relief. As my husband William left to buy groceries for dinner, my mother-in-law casually approached me on our first day living together. "Angela, could you lend me some money? I'm going out, and just in case I need a bit extra, could you give me $1,250 for now?" she asked, pretending it was for buying dinner. I hesitated, wondering just how many groceries she intended to buy with the amount she asked for. Against my better judgment, I handed her the money. 3 hours later, she returned home by taxi, her arms full of bags from a high-end department store, overflowing with costly deli items and sweets. Tonight we feast. I wanted to try these side dishes. They're supposed to be delicious. "And we have desserts too," she exclaimed with pride. Curious, I asked, "Mother, how much did all this cost?" She responded nonchalantly, "Well, let's see. I went a bit over because of the taxi, but I covered the extra, so it's fine." Her proud declaration left me speechless, and I realized this was just the beginning of what would become my biggest challenge. Managing finances became increasingly difficult after we moved into the family home. While my father-in-law was alive, we used to order groceries online and pay with his credit card. Learning from my initial mistake of handing her large sums of cash, I no longer trusted her with shopping and kept our wallets in a locked drawer. Dissatisfied with not having free access to money, she ceased doing any housework, focusing only on caring for the flowers at the entrance. Despite receiving a monthly allowance of $1,500, she quickly squandered it on clothes, beauty salon visits, and casual outings for meals or coffee with neighbors. By mid-month, she was often penniless, leaving us to cover her expenses. She typically ran out of money mid-month and would ask for more. Frustrated by her reckless spending, especially since I was trying to save for my daughter's education, I calmly explained to her the limits when she asked for extra cash for a lunch date with friends. Even William, who earns a salary, gets an allowance of $1,500. "I can't justify giving you more than we give someone who's working. Please try to manage it better," I told her. Unhappy with my response, she retreated to her room, and I suspected she might ask William for money later. The money for her allowance was meant to support her future care in a nursing home. If we kept giving her more, it would ultimately be to her detriment. When William got home, I shared my concerns with him. "Did your mother ask you for extra money again?" I asked. He nodded. Yes, she did, but it's hard to be strict with her. She feels lonely without her dad around, and she's always been a bit vain. I want to keep her happy, at least while she's living with us, he said. I understood his sentiment but pointed out, your kindness might not really be helping her in the long run, and it could backfire on us too. My mother-in-law had a habit of showing off, especially in front of her two old friends who were mothers of my husband's classmates and lived nearby. I had first noticed this during the funeral arrangements for my father-in-law. William, it's your father's funeral. Arrange the altar like this and get more extravagant flowers. The neighbors are coming. Don't embarrass your father, she directed. William, being the dutiful spouse, complied to a certain extent, though the costs were significantly high. Her primary aim was always to impress the neighbors. At the funeral, she only greeted the families of her two friends, seemingly focused on maintaining appearances. One day, after she returned from lunch with these friends, it became even more apparent how much she felt the need to keep up with people from a more lavish lifestyle. She returned home with a gleam in her eyes, clearly excited. Today Doris showed me a ring worth $25,000 that her husband bought for their golden wedding anniversary. I've never seen a ring that expensive before. It's a fantastic gift, she exclaimed. Then, with a hint of superiority and a dose of sarcasm, she turned to me and said, "You don't have such wealthy friends, do you, Angela? You'll probably never see anything like that in your lifetime." Her words were designed to belittle me. As she continued, "Angela, you're so plain. Why don't you wear some makeup? Have you ever been to an upscale lunch?" It was all about trying to make me feel inferior. I tried to brush off her comments, but her attitude toward me grew increasingly hostile, particularly after I had refused to give her more money following the settlement of my father-in-law's estate and our search for a nursing home. Around the same time, my mother's health dramatically worsened. When my sister and I hurried to the hospital, the doctor told us that she had about 4 months left to live due to advanced cancer. She was in a delicate state and could decline at any moment. My mother had occasionally mentioned feeling unwell previously, but she was a person who rarely showed any signs of vulnerability. I deeply regretted not having been more attentive to her condition. I asked my sister to stay with her while I returned to her apartment to gather some clothes and other personal items. As I packed a large bag in her bedroom, I found some cash in a drawer, likely set aside for her monthly living expenses. I decided to take the cash with me, intending to quickly shower and then head back to the hospital to be with her. I left the bag in William's upstairs room, and after getting ready, noticed that the zipper was slightly open. A wave of unease hit me as I checked inside the bag and discovered the cash was missing. Fighting the surge of anger, I went downstairs to confront my mother-in-law in her room. "Mother, may I ask you something?" I said as she was getting ready to leave. She turned to face me and asked, "How's your mother doing?" "I have plans with my friends right now." I pressed on, "The money that was in the bag in our room, you have it, don't you?" "That money belongs to my mother. Please return it." "I don't know what you're talking about. I never go upstairs." "Are you accusing me of stealing?" She snapped back, brushing past me to head for the door. "I'm going out for a fancy French dinner with my friends tonight, so I don't need your poor excuse for a meal. Give my regards to your mother," she added with a smirk, leaving the house and leaving me in shock. Just then, Lauren, my daughter, came home and noticed my distress. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked, seeing the turmoil in my eyes. "Your grandmother's money. My mother-in-law took it." I can't confront her without evidence. I confessed as tears began to naturally fall. Lauren gently stroked my back to calm me down. I've seen her sneaking down from upstairs before. To think she would stoop to taking your grandmother's money, I can't forgive her. But how's Grandma? If you're going to the hospital, I'll come with you. Let's think of a way to deal with this. She proposed, her words buoying my spirit slightly despite the circumstances. As we walked to the car, Lauren's support lightened my heart a bit. Despite feeling sorry for my father-in-law, I realized that I needed to protect my family in my way. A few days later, however, my mother's condition suddenly worsened, adding another layer of urgency and distress to our already strained situation. This unexpected turn forced us to rally together and put family first, showing strength in the face of adversity and reevaluating our priorities and the dynamics within our home. In her final days, my mother was often lost in a daze, though there were moments when she was startlingly clear-minded. I took every opportunity to express my gratitude to her for the way she raised me. Her love, her encouragement of Lauren's dreams, her support for the plans William and I had for our future, and her companionship into our old age. Though she couldn't speak much, her eyes would sometimes sparkle with understanding, and she'd nod gently as I spoke. During these emotional days, I remembered a significant conversation with my father-in-law before he passed. He had contemplated divorcing my mother-in-law due to her extravagant habits, but held back to avoid burdening William and me. He had made me promise to sell the house and move my mother-in-law into a nursing home after his passing. This was because her spending had gotten out of control once William began kindergarten, influenced by living in a wealthy area and the pressure to keep up with affluent neighbors. She seemed to have deluded herself into believing she was wealthy, perhaps spurred on by William's success at a prestigious company. Reflecting on this, I regretted not following through with his wishes sooner, which might have prevented the unfortunate incident with my mother's money. When the time came, William and Lauren were there for my mother's final moments, but it was my sister and her husband who were with her at the very end. After her passing, as we prepared for the funeral, my mother-in-law was conspicuously absent. I decided to extend one last gesture of kindness towards her by conducting a small, quiet funeral without her presence. I tried reaching her, but she didn't answer her phone, and it seemed she had stayed out all night. When she finally returned, it was with a light-hearted demeanor, untouched by the somber events. "My condolences for your loss. It must have been hard," she greeted me, seemingly oblivious to the depth of our grief. This contrast between her mood and the solemnity of our family's loss struck a distant chord, highlighting the differences in our perspectives and priorities. I couldn't help but notice a dazzling new jewel in her hand, a pink diamond that sparkles under the light. "Look at this beauty. Isn't it gorgeous? It cost $70,000. She exclaimed with a proud smile. Surprised, I asked, "Mother, how did you manage to buy that?" "Oh, I bought it, of course." Doris introduced me to a boutique in Philadelphia, USA, that you can only visit by reservation. So I went there for an overnight trip with my friends. The hotel we stayed at was lovely, and the meals were divine, she replied. Her words left me dumbstruck. Here I was, mourning at my mother's funeral, and my mother-in-law was off in Philadelphia, enjoying luxury shopping with her friends. I bought something even pricier than what Doris showed me. "Feels good," she declared smugly. Struggling to grasp the situation, I asked, "But how? You don't have that kind of money. Where did you get it?" Her answer came nonchalantly. "Oh, I found it in William's room safe." My passbook was in there with exactly $770,000. Since it's in my passbook, it's my money, right? I felt a chill run through me. Her actions, especially during such a sensitive time, were disappointing, though not entirely unexpected. It confirmed she had been sneaking around our upstairs room. The passbook was supposed to be secure in the study room safe that William now used. That safe, an old-fashioned dial type, was often left unlocked by William, who found it cumbersome to use, assuming security was sufficient since the study was locked. On the day of my mother's passing, I had left the study unlocked, suspecting she might try to sneak in and take the passbook. That $770,000 is from my father's inheritance. Do you realize what you've done? I confronted her. Unfazed, she retorted, I know it's from your father, but it's my money. So what's wrong with using it? Her response was disheartening, showcasing a disregard for family ties and the emotional weight of the moment. As I faced my mother-in-law, a mixture of pity and resolve washed over me. It's indeed your money, and you are free to use it as you see fit. However, that money was designated for your old age. Since we will be moving out, it will be up to you to manage your finances independently from now on. Initially, my mother-in-law looked perplexed by my firm declaration. But as the full impact of my words sank in, her expression turned ashen. She stammered, Wait, isn't there a separate fund for the nursing home? It should be more than this amount, right? Yes, there was more originally, I explained patiently, but it has been reduced due to the inflated cost of my father-in-law's funeral and your frequent requests for additional funds from William. Feeling the need to clarify her future options, I presented her with a stack of nursing home brochures that I had gathered over several months. She flipped through them, her hands trembling slightly, a silent testament to her dawning realization of the consequences of her actions. At that moment, William and Lauren descended the stairs. I had briefed them earlier about the unfortunate discoveries in the study, prompting them to come and assess the situation. Although William had initially been skeptical that his mother could have misappropriated the funds, the evidence was undeniable, and he supported my stance. Under different circumstances, I would have meticulously arranged for my mother-in-law's care in a suitable nursing home. However, her blatant disregard for our privacy and the theft of the funds compelled me to prioritize the safety and well-being of our own family. I made it clear that her actions, entering our private space and removing money, were utterly unacceptable. The breach of trust was severe, and I resolved to sever ties with her for the foreseeable future. William, you'll continue to stay in this house, won't you? I inquired, seeking his affirmation. It's heartbreaking to consider selling a home filled with so many memories, but looking after parents is a son's responsibility. As I clung to William, seeking solace and reassurance, I decided to double-check the safe one last time. To my dismay, not only the passbook, but also the additional cash I had withdrawn for the car inspection was missing. Overwhelmed by the betrayal, I turned to William, my voice laden with shock. This is too much. I trusted her, I exclaimed. His voice heavy with regret, William admitted the harsh truth, struggling to articulate the emotions swirling through him. His acknowledgement of the situation marked a pivotal moment in our family dynamics, reinforcing the necessity of the tough decisions we faced. I discovered she had borrowed $115,000, but there was more at stake, my mother's money. What about the money you took that belonged to my mother? I demanded, my panic rising. Oh, I'll return that too. Then we're fine, right, Angela? You'll forgive me now, won't you? She replied, her tone rushed as she handed me the money. Still evasive about the $70,000 ring until the very end, not once did she offer an apology for the distress she caused regarding my mother's funds. I'm sorry, but I can't live with you anymore. I need to protect my own family from now on, I declared resolutely. She broke down crying, clinging to William, who was overcome with a mix of sorrow and frustration. William acted decisively amid his grief. He sold her belongings to amass a lump sum and located a nursing home that was affordable on her pension. The facility was far from our family home, far enough that I probably wouldn't see her again in my lifetime. William still receives occasional calls from the home, indicating that she has begun to settle into her new surroundings. Reflecting on everything, I regretted not arranging for her to move into a home sooner. Perhaps if we hadn't lived under the same roof, her life and ours might have been happier. Despite everything, a part of me felt a twinge of sympathy for her. After her departure, we looked forward to Lauren's graduation. Lauren was accepted into her university of choice and started living independently. The family home, situated in a desirable area, quickly attracted a buyer. William is now seeking a transfer to a branch near the coast. We plan to spend a few years there until retirement, searching for our final home. We hope to continue living peacefully and harmoniously as a family, finding solace in the stability and tranquility of our new life by the sea.